This is the Orange County Coalition for Diversity in the Law. My name is Kristen Fabella, and today we are so excited to have Arjun Sivakumar. Arjun, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a litigation partner at Brown Rudnick here in Orange County. I've been practicing for 10 years this October. I'm South Indian by heritage, Malayali to be exact, from the southern part of India, from Kerala. That's where my family's from. I went to Cornell for undergrad and Columbia for law school. I actually grew up in the Midwest and the East Coast. I summered in the New York office of Brown Rudnick. I came out to Orange County when I started as an associate and qualified in both New York and California.
And how different was the Midwest and the West Coast in terms of growing up and seeing the cultures? Did culture play a role in that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, I grew up until I was in seventh grade in Chicago, suburbs of Chicago. And that's kind of where I feel like, probably my mannerisms and things come from more so than anywhere else, and I lived in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia area for high school. And then obviously I went on to college and law school. And here, this is my first time in warm weather living in the West Coast. So that's definitely a big difference. But I've tried to pick up kind of the best from all the different places I've lived in, and it's once you come to Southern California, it's a little bit hard to go back to the cold.
What are some of the mannerisms that you bring from the Midwest that maybe the West Coast doesn't have?
I don't know about the West Coast doesn't have it. I mean, Midwest is obviously you have the Midwest are nice, the civility. And that's a big part of my practice, and I think it's also true in the West Coast and in many other areas as well. It's not limited to the Midwest, but that's definitely a certain approach to take to the practice of law, I think, as well as any other aspect of life, is basically just really focusing on civility, being nice, being kind, understanding that everybody, even in the course of a case, for example, the opposing counsel is really kind of in the same position you are. Everyone's, probably staying up late and working hard, trying to, fight for their client. So there's no real need to be nasty or mean. And that's really not an effective strategy, I don't think either. I think a lot of times you get more flies with honey than with vinegar, or I think is the right usage. So basically that kind of approach that basically, and some of that maybe comes from the fact that I kind of grew up in the Midwest.
And you were quoted in a law.com series saying civility and client service is always at the center of my practice. You've explained how civility plays out in ways that an attorney can put civility in the center. How can young attorneys start honing this skill?
It's really kind of goes back to exactly what I said, basically it's looking at every single case, thinking about it in terms of like, what is it that we need and how can we express that to the other side, and then basically not doing it in a way that's hostile or mean. The main point is you can be firm without being nasty, and that's much more effective in my view. So I'm not saying obviously to be weak or to capitulate to the other side, but you still want to be firm and express your position. But if you do it in a way that's thought out and not unnecessarily with ad hominem attacks or personal, I think it's a lot more effective in terms of getting them to agree. And a lot of times they will agree because they understand why it is that you would be asking for the things that you're asking for, because they'd be asking for the same thing, if it was them.
And so putting civility and not being nasty, as you say, I think these are skills that maybe the legal profession not so much downplays, but I think there might be this misconception that you have to be this nasty, aggressive lawyer. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's totally changing in a way I've seen, and I think in a lot of my cases, litigation, probably historically, that's kind of the stereotype people have had of a litigator is kind of somebody who's, very aggressive and brash and kind of like that. But it doesn't have to necessarily be like that. Again, I think you can be firm and you can really be thorough on the details, and you can understand, the case thoroughly and be able to make your argument without going into any kind of personal kind of invective. And I think that's really something that I think I've found even more, and just in my opinion, as the profession diversifies, as we have more women and minority attorneys having a greater role in a lot of the cases, I found that civility that's also helped out a little bit in terms of it's increased for whatever reason the civility in the profession. I don't know why that would be the case, but that's just my.
And in 2018, you were a part of OCCDL's speaker series called What I Wish I Had Known. Do you recall anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a really fascinating talk featuring Ari Joseph, who was then our former head of DEI for my firm, who's now been in-house at a bunch of different companies leading diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and really talking about kind of great insights about practice, about not only about legal practice and kind of how to approach early career as an associate and all the way through to advancement, but circumstance, and kind of basically that luck plays a role, as does practice. I think in his case, he has started practicing not long after the financial crisis, so there was obviously some turmoil in the legal market at that time. But it's important to, what I recall from that event is it's important to kind of brush things off, not let them get you down or otherwise, basically understand that not everything that happens is like your fault. So that obviously if there's a financial crisis or something else going on, it's not a commentary on you. For example, the firm might not have a lot of work or something like that, or you might not have a lot of work, or or whatever the circumstance might be. I don't remember what it was in that specific case, but that basically it's important for you, and I think as an attorney, and I think this kind of goes to a larger point about advice I would give to junior attorneys and others, is basically to persevere. That it's kind of the profession is kind of, and really learning this profession is kind of a marathon, not a sprint. What you learn in law school only gets you a small bit of the way towards, I would say, being a successful practitioner. And so a lot of what you need to do to practice law efficiently and successfully, you learn from the actual, once you start the practice. And it's not all that different from the medieval times, with an apprenticeship, right? If you're a blacksmith in like the 1200s, you don't know anything. You learn from the experienced blacksmith for a certain number of years until you figure out how to make the metal, whatever, urn or whatever it is you're trying to make, but perfect over time. So that's kind of basically what it is, right? I was lucky to, when, at Brown Rudnick, I really had the best, I would say, possible mentors and sponsors and partners who taught me from when I was junior associate how to do this job, like Joel Melvan, Catherine Castaldi, Leo Preciado. I could name many of them who basically were, I truly believe they're excellent attorneys. They're excellent people. They really care about bringing up young attorneys, and took the time to not only to give feedback on my work, but kind of teach me how to do this job well, and every aspect of this job, from business development to to argument to writing. And that's basically what I would say is, as a young attorney, I would say that, the most important thing is just to persevere. Like, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be bumps in the road. And if you just kind of keep your head down, work hard, basically listen to advice, take feedback and improve, that's really all you can do. If you've graduated law school, you passed the bar, you're smart enough and good enough to do this job. It's just a matter of now being coachable, take feedback, learn, improve, and you'll get better, and you're qualified. You just have to go through the ropes of learning.
I really like that analogy that you made. It's like the medieval times, it's an apprenticeship. A few months ago, we had interviewed Meredith Williams Sivakumar, your wife, and she had great comparisons between parenthood and partnerhood in both the law firm and in a family, as partners taking care of whom she called her very important client.
Yeah. Interestingly, partnership and parenthood kind of came to me at the same time, almost at the same time and during the same year. So basically, it's interesting, and they both obviously bring a realm of very, very exciting times, but also a lot of responsibility and increased time commitment and things like that. So it's really been it's really been an exhilarating kind of process to go through both. And I know that as a new partner, there's a lot going on in terms of, you have a lot more responsibilities than you did as an associate. You play a different role a lot of times in cases. It's more of a management type role in terms of making sure everything's running on time, dealing with the client, dealing with the bills, things like that you wouldn't necessarily have, not all of which is billable, I guess. So it's stuff you deal with on top of your legal work. And then As a partner, also I've been focused much more on, even more than I was before, on business development, speaking, things like that. Particularly in this field of AI, that is very valuable, at the forefront of everybody's interest right now. I've kind of been doing some speaking on that and reading on that to see how AI is impacting litigation, things like that. So that I've been focused on. As a partner, a new partner, and then on top of it, obviously with a new baby, there's a lot of, obviously you have to be there for her, and it's hard enough, being at work most of the day because you only have so much time to spend with her, my daughter Mira. She's kind of my pride and joy, so I love to spend as much time as I can with her in the morning, nights, weekends. And it makes you, one of the other things, it makes you kind of more efficient at work. A lot of times when you don't have kids, I think it's a little bit more loose. Like, at work, sometimes I have more time to chit chat and talk to people and, hang out, and then basically, get my work done over the course of the day. But, with the baby, it just changes that a little bit in terms of, I still obviously want to maintain a good office culture. And my colleagues are kind of my best friends. So I love to talk to them and hang out with them, but I have to balance that obviously with the with my family obligations. But I think it's been a great, it's been just a thrilling, double kind of in tandem roller coaster ride over the last year or so. And, so I have nothing, I can't say anything, negative about it. I think it's been fantastic.
You and Meredith bring this incredible warmth and richness and humor into this legal profession that is so refreshing. And so, with that being said, is there any advice that you would give to your new daughter?
Yeah, so I would say that, and Meredith, I don't know if I didn't say enough about Meredith. She's obviously brilliant and incredible, trademark litigation attorney and all of that. And she's so great with the baby. And so really just a kind of a jack of all trades. But as far as advice to my daughter, I would definitely say it kind of goes back to the whole, almost like civility point, but in a more, applicable to babies as opposed to lawyers, is be kind, be kind, be positive. So basically there's silver lining in every cloud. Kind of, there's the glass can always be seen as half full as well as half empty. I kind of believe, that's just my beliefs. I kind of think there's good in everybody and everything. The world is fundamentally like a good place with good people, despite what you sometimes, when watching the news, you might think, like everything kind of sucks, but the world is a good place. And I kind of hope she can see that, and she can see the good part of things. And then I think that totally plays into whatever she ultimately grows up and decides to do. It plays into things like, for example, civility. If you're feeling positive about things and you see the good in other people, like there's no reason to be uncivil. So I think it all plays together in a way.
It definitely does. Arjun, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Kristen. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And OCCDL, I know it's such a great organization, and I was involved in it in the past, and it's doing incredible things in terms of recruitment, retention, promotion, getting diverse attorneys to Orange County through the pipeline from like a young age to the point where they become attorneys, and then keeping them in Orange County and making sure that they rise through the ranks in Orange County and are able to become partners and owners and other things that we want diverse candidates to achieve. So OCCDL is so integral to that, and I really appreciate everything they're doing and everything you're doing to pursue those very important goals.